Now my brother takes care of me. I miss Mom and Dad being around more. Mom says things are going to get better.
I did it.
I need it.
The hero gave it.
And I am alive.
As an organ donor, you can save up to 8 lives and enhance the lives of 75 others. Please go to our website. Pledge a gift of life. You'll be glad you did.
You're watching Rogers TV.
Hello everybody, my name is Jason Piercey and this is Out of the Fog. I mean, it's a great thing to name a show after when you live on a rock in the middle of the cold North Atlantic, fog, but it's not always good for how we feel about ourselves and our mood, and there's a lot about mental health and mental illness that descends sometimes into addiction that we need to be better at as a province. And tonight we're gonna have a couple of conversations that revolve around that and the support that we can provide to people who aren't in great places. I hope you stay tuned. This is an important one. Please watch. We'll be right back after this.
Your opinion matters, and we want to hear from you. Get in touch with us using our viewer feedback line, your direct connection to shaping the shows you love. It's easy. Just grab your phone, scan the QR code on your screen, and take our quick survey. Share your thoughts, and let's make your viewing experience even better.
Welcome back to Out of the Fog. Let me introduce you to someone. I don't know if I should use the word introduce. A lot of people recognize you. You have you've got a distinct look and energy and appearance about you. And I think that's interesting that I said energy, because that's something that you've been focused on for a long time. Miss Tina Olivero, hello. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Today we're here to talk about something that's a little bit different than what you've spent the last 25 or 30 years doing. You are a founder and CEO of Guardians of Recovery. That's a relatively new organization, relatively new movement. Mm-hmm. And before we talk about how this came about for you to recognize it as something you wanted to dedicate yourself to, can we talk a little bit about what it does first?
Sure, yeah. Guardians of Recovery is, as its name suggests, is really being guardians for people who are going through recovery and also supporting families who have addicted loved ones. So
specifically, Guardians of Recovery, those recovering from addiction.
Yes.
And their families.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And often we deal with people who are, really in extreme circumstances that are sort of at the end of their life, at the end of their rope, at very, very extreme circumstances like my son was, Ben. Yeah. It started because I was getting like 2 or 3 calls a day from people who were going through the same thing. I lost Ben to overdose and addiction this summer, and then it kind of burst a bubble because I thought I was the only person going through this when I was trying to help Ben through that illness. But when it happened, I realized like every family has someone in their family in an extreme addictive situation.
What a polarizing set of emotions that must bring about, because in one way, you're feeling a degree of I don't know if relief is the right word, but at least a sense of belonging or less isolation. And you're like, you're kind of happy that there's people to be around, but at the exact same time, you're like, oh my goodness, other people have to deal with this. So that in and of itself has got to be hard to grapple with.
Well, the very first thing we did was we started this support group on Sundays at the Lantern. That's for families who have addicted loved ones. And so there was, the majority of people were moms, much like myself, who went through the same experience. And we didn't have a clue what we were doing. We just knew that through each other, we could find solutions, suggestions, be there for each other, listen, validate, and take the next step. And so basically that's what we've been doing every Sunday.
I appreciate your use of the word validate. And I think that goes back to a lot of what a group support is just meant to do, to remove that isolation and know there's people that I can lean on. Like, I'm not crazy for feeling this way. Like, I feel frustrated. I feel like I can't help. I feel like no matter what I do, it's wrong. I feel like, and to have that validated, to be like, yeah.
I think the hardest thing that a parent can ever go through is to watch their son or daughter or loved one diminish right before their eyes over, a couple of years or many years, and they just become a different person because of that addiction. You do feel isolated. Sometimes you think you're crazy. Sometimes you think it's your fault. There's guilt, shame. There's so many emotions when really addiction is not a parenting error. It's a brain illness, and we're in the midst of transforming and understanding that fully, but there's a lot to it. And so we try to help each other. Sometimes someone's in jail and they've got the wrong medication. Sometimes someone's in jail and needs to get to hospital. Sometimes someone is in addiction and they've overdosed and need to get to hospital. Sometimes they have nowhere to live. So there's always a situation where someone's in an extreme situation that we need to kind of help them with the next step, and I take 2-3 calls a day from people in that situation. It's astounding how rampant it is in this province, and I think we're only waking up now to the fact that we have 2 to 4 overdoses a day in this province,
and people don't even realize it. It's like our homelessness, our housing crisis has become relatively recently. It's become sort of unignorable. But for a long time, we had this ghost homeless population that the public either refused to acknowledge or just didn't know existed.
Right.
And the hard part about that is that we need to be aware of a problem in order to be able to solve it. So now we're aware of that problem, and there's people who are doing things to try and solve it. Not fast enough, but they're doing them. And we need to know that this is a problem in order for us to be able to solve it, because you can't fix something that is undiagnosed.
Addiction thrives in the dark. And so this is all about communicating, getting it up out of the dark into the light, having it be a free conversation without stigma, to be able to elevate a conversation that we get rid of all of that shame and all of that judgment, and put it in a place where it actually meant, addiction is added to the Mental Health Act because it's a brain illness.
It's always been there, even down in the States in the DSM-4, 3, 5, like, it's always been considered an illness. And I really like how you phrased addiction as a brain thing as opposed to a personality or a mood thing, because especially in Newfoundland, we tend to have a definition of a word that suits what we want it to mean when we say it. Right? So, I mean, and there's a bunch of little examples, but the word ignorant comes to mind. We call people ignorant when we mean that they're rude, but it really means that they don't know any better.
Right.
They're unaware of this.
Yeah.
And the way that we define addiction, I think is lopsided in that same way, because when someone is an addict, they're sick.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they're sick.
And they need to care, and they need support, and they don't need to be on the street. They don't need to be in jail. They need medical assistance just like anything else. And probably the place that fails them the most is at that point of medical assistance, because people overdose, they go to emerge, and they're let out right away when really what they need is support. So guardians,
because the symptom was the overdose.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can treat the symptom.
Yeah.
And then they're pumped, or they take whatever treatment to clean out their system, and then they're released.
Yeah.
They're still sick.
Yeah.
They're just not currently with a symptom.
Exactly. So for Guardians of Recovery, it's like everything is, all roads lead to recovery. We've been fortunate enough to get 30 or so people into detox rehab.
That's incredible.
Since Ben died. We've helped a couple of hundred parents who have addicted loved ones through the organization since Ben died. And, I have big dreams for this. I want to create sober living homes, sober living cultures, and I want to reframe the whole thing. Like, nobody wants to go to rehab, but everybody would love to go to a resort.
Sure.
So why don't we have recovery resorts? Here in Newfoundland, we have the perfect setting for it. Nature, cliffs, beautiful scenery, amazing clean environment. So we could actually be one of the world's leaders in recovery resorts, and that's where I'm thinking from. It's like turning this whole thing on its head, making recovery appealing, because when you think about it, what is recovery? It's really self-awareness, personal growth, cognitive behavioral therapy. That's all a personal conversation.
Self-awareness is probably the first step,
Yeah.
and the hardest, I would think.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about how addiction is something that exists in the darkness, and I think there's probably a couple of reasons for that. One is it makes people nervous, and they try to hide it, stay away from it.
Yeah.
Both because it's themselves or someone
too
you know,
hard
and
to
you don't talk about it. Exactly. And much like mental health, but it's also, by the time it gets to the point where you go to the hospital for it,
Yeah.
you are already so far deep into
It's
it.
life-threatening.
Exactly. Like I'm in real estate sales, which can be a fun, exciting highs and really low lows kind of thing. So I know a bunch of people just in my industry that, if truth be told, you'd say you are a high functioning alcoholic, high functioning. But by the time that gets to the point where you're calling a hospital or a medical professional,
Yeah.
you could have fixed that way easier 10 years ago.
Exactly. So, all of the things that we're waking up to now, the way that people are more self-aware, even social media is reflective of people becoming more self-aware. That's a gateway into our own personal growth. So what is addiction? Well, everybody has an addiction. It's just at what level. And when it becomes life-threatening, now you're in severe circumstances. So how do we get to the baseline of that? We start teaching our kids about emotional intelligence. We start teaching them about self-awareness, which I did with my kids. And even then, you're still dealing with genetics and brain illness. And sometimes, loss of life is unavoidable, but I think there's a lot that we can do between there and there. So if we architect a culture of sobriety and we have sober living cultures, sober living cafes, sober living society where it's inclusive, 1 in 6 people are impacted by mental health and addiction issues. So think about that. An inclusive society holds a space for those people to feel included. Right now, they feel excluded. So we got to change all of that. And it's our role as a society, as a culture, to change that. And you said something earlier about, we can become a victim to this or we can take responsibility. Well, what is responsibility? Able to respond.
Yes.
And for us as a society, not just government, it's not government's fault. Government is, taking the wishes of the people and executing them. So therefore, we are in control of how this is going to go. We get what we tolerate. So this is a huge opportunity for us to architect a future that goes completely differently. And where Ben fell through all the loopholes in his journey, that's what I see as the opportunity for our growth and to change things.
Because people who suffer from addiction aren't otherwise completely healthy, or the start of the process that descended into addiction, wouldn't have been emergent. Tina, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
People can go to your website, guardiansofrecovery.foundation. We will be right back after this.
Your opinion matters, and we want to hear from you. Get in touch with us using our viewer feedback line, your direct connection to shaping the shows you love. It's easy. Just grab your phone, scan the QR code on your screen, and take our quick survey. Share your thoughts, and let's make your viewing experience even better.
Welcome back to Out of the Fog. A transition here, but still very much on the same topic. Ladies and gentlemen, the absolutely wonderful Dr. Janine Hubbard. Dr. Hubbard, thanks for coming here and talking. We did this one time before, but it was like over like Skype or something way back when during COVID.
Yes, that's right, because I knew we'd spoken before, and I've done this here once before, but it's been a long time.
Yes, it's been a number of years now. And obviously a lot has changed in the world and for everybody involved during that period of time. And one of the bright spots that came out of a whole lot of darkness was a little bit of stigma being removed from the fact that we all battle some less fun times, some dark times. And off camera, we were talking about how there's emergent research that is separating things in a way that people might fall into a category that they didn't know existed. And I realize that's really vague, but it's the preamble to make what you're going to say make sense. I hope.
Absolutely. Well, and I think one of the things that we definitely came out of the pandemic was just a normalizing that we all experience unpleasant emotions and feelings, and that it's important to acknowledge them.
I like to think of, so we have our body that does all of these things on its own without us having to think about it doing it, right? And that separates our head and our brain from like the brain or the organ that does these things, and our mind or our consciousness as us being aware of the things that we're doing. And sometimes they're wrong about each other, right? So you can wake up in the middle of the night and your heart is racing and your skin conductivity is such that like you're all on end, and you might have sweaty palms, and you might be like, and those are all physiological response that your body is having, that your brain is a part of, but not necessarily your mind. And in your mind, you decide what you're feeling.
Well, your mind then interprets those.
Exactly. But a lot of these really heavy order emotions or moods sort of have polarized expressions. Like, for instance, if you were really anxious, those are a lot of the same things your body would do if you were really excited, which is why you get, like in sports, real clutch performers, like really big game people. So waking up in the middle of the night and being anxious and can't go back to sleep, you might have been just dreaming about something real risque.
It's all very possible.
That was a lot to lighten the mood. So let's talk about the fact that this is all normal for us to have these sort of feelings.
Absolutely.
But there is also a difference between monitoring your mental health and having a mental illness that might need a slightly larger degree of intervention.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to be mindful of that continuum. And that really exists for almost every classification we have, be that anxiety, it could be OCD, it could be depression, could be a whole lot of things that we all have rough days, we all have periods of time, whether it's because of life circumstances, where, our mood might not be where we'd like it to be. And it's a question of how long does that period go on for, and how badly does that impact your ability to function on a daily basis.
And how often till that cycle comes around again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if it's every February, then there's a predictability to it, and it might have something to do with some life-related situations.
You know, certainly anyone who has anniversaries of perhaps the loss of loved ones, sometimes they may not even fully realize that it is approaching, but your body's sending you messages, and then you go, oh, right, that's coming up, or that's happening right now. So again, very, very normal, expected, just part of the human condition. It's, like I say, the crossing of the threshold is when it's impacting whether it's your ability to get through a workday, whether it's your sleep, whether it's your relationships, because there's a lot of people out there who can get through that workday, but then that's it for the rest of the day.
They've spent everything
they've
have
spent everything.
on that.
Yeah.
And I like what you said earlier about how your body is telling you something. It's sending you messages, and it's yet to be brought to your awareness. And then when you have that awareness and you recognize it, then you can do something about it. Which, in a lot of ways, and this just came to me, please correct me if I'm almost undoubtedly wrong, that's not really much different than me getting hangry. Because my mood deteriorates, and I'm frustrated, and I can't, I'm not going to do as good a job of the thing I need to do, whether it's talking to you now, or patience with my daughter, or working with a real estate client, or my partner Sam, any of that, if I need to eat something.
Right. What's really interesting, and I'm always careful when we talk about gender differences, but one of the consistent findings that they've discovered is that men are far more likely to present to a physician with physical symptoms that are actually related to underlying depression, whereas women are far more likely to, talk about, well, I've had changes in mood, or my focus, or, being kind of more conscious of I wonder if I'm depressed. Men are far more likely to go in with gastro issues, or stomach issues, or headaches, or, a whole litany of physical complaints, not realizing that that's actually a symptom or the presentation of their depression.
So as somebody who is naturally drawn to this topic, I currently see wide in front of me this big old rabbit hole that I kind of want to jump into, because I have a thought about what you just said, and I'm not entirely sure we can even get into it, but that difference in presentation to me could very well have this as a contributing factor. Men don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about how they feel, so it's swallowed, and it doesn't get out, and then it manifests into something else because your body doesn't have another way to tell you. Women get told all the time that they're crazy. And so to me, that seems like a way that it could help to present itself in those ways, because there's no communication and no freedom to discuss what you actually think and feel on either side, either because your partner doesn't understand or you don't feel like it's a safe place to do so, that other stuff gets thrown at you and you have no other way to get it out.
I think one of the things that we definitely have seen, again, we've seen changes in stigma, we've seen changes in attitude, but certainly a lot of movement around men's mental health and the importance of talking about feelings and talking about some of these experiences and acknowledging some of these symptoms, because for so long it has really been, oh no, you suck it up and deal with it. Yeah. So even in terms of something like booking an appointment with your physician to go in, I mean, it's hard for anybody, really, and kudos for anyone who has taken this leap to book an appointment and go in and start the conversation saying, I think I might be depressed.
Or even to say, I don't feel the same, and I don't know what's wrong.
Yeah. But it's much easier for many people, but men in particular, to go in and say, you know what, I've been having a lot of issues with my stomach.
Yeah.
That, I mean, you hopefully will come to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
But it is amazing, even with some of that, improvement in terms of the stigma. Picking up the phone and booking a therapy appointment, picking up the phone and making the physician appointment, that's still a really big step for a lot of people.
I used to get cluster headaches, migraines, and I've been in the ER on intravenous medication for migraine. And I haven't had one since I started to treat anxiety, depression, and ADHD. So I never realized that till you said it. Okay, for those of us that aren't feeling great right now, the weather sucks. We do not get a lot of vitamin D. It is cold. You can't get out and do the fun stuff that you want to do. It's hard to take your dog for a walk. Your kids are in the house all the time. It's dark at 5 o'clock. You're not getting vitamin D. These are all of this, no wonder you're grumpy.
This is, listen, January is a rough time. You're still recovering from all the holiday, both the excitement and the festivities, and the bills are coming in.
And the come down from that.
Yes.
Now it's so quiet and dull and I'm bored, and I was so happy yesterday, and today I'm so alone.
And we do not live in a place, unless hopefully you are someone who can appreciate those nice days, the snow when it's there, the winter sports, you know, that piece of things. So this is a period of time where a lot of people are feeling really down. They're just feeling unmotivated. They're kind of going, you know, I've come home, I'm not going to get out to go to the gym. I don't really even want to go and do the social thing I committed to. It's cold, it's dark. Really common experience for pretty much most of us, but it happens to varying degrees.
So
as I said before, it's that severity.
Yeah, how do we mitigate those things? And is there really, and this is impossible, I know, is there like a really quick 25-second, here's how you know which one you're in? Kind of?
Little bit. So, people are familiar with the phrase seasonal affective disorder. We actually had it renamed a few years ago to depressive disorder with seasonal patterns, to reflect the fact that for about 2 to 6% of the population, this is a form of clinical depression. Symptoms consistently start in the fall.
So it validates it. It's real.
Oh yeah,
You're
it's
sick.
real.
See your doctor.
Yep, 2 to 6%. Like I say, and it happens every year. You start to feel the symptoms in the fall, and then in the spring you feel this sudden improvement. And if you look back historically, it's something that seems to happen every year, and to a degree, again, that it is really impairing.
Dr. Hubbard, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for your advice. Thank you guys for watching. Find little ways to make things brighter. Get it? Vitamin D. We'll be right back after this.
Your opinion matters, and we want to hear from you. Get in touch with us using our viewer feedback line, your direct connection to shaping the shows you love. It's easy. Just grab your phone, scan the QR code on your screen, and take our quick survey. Share your thoughts, and let's make your viewing experience even better.
Welcome back. To end this show, I'd like to put out an anecdote that I heard from Dr. John Hagee when he spoke at an event that I hosted a number of years ago. He said he remembered when you didn't talk about your cancer diagnosis. There was this big stigma. And then when the stigma got removed and we talked about it and we learned about it and we raised money about it, we started curing it. And now way less people die of cancer. Maybe it's time that we do the same thing with mental health, addictions, and mental illness. That's what I hope for us. That's what I hope for you. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
We want to hear from you. Provide feedback on this show or find out how you can get involved. Call, email us, or scan the QR code to take our quick survey.
I am lucky to meet so many amazing women, and I hope they feel lucky to meet me. I'm ready.